Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Coburn, and today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars versus Pittsburgh Steelers Week 5 matchup based on analytics. And as you may or may not know, each week I collect all of the current 2017 NFL team data in order to analyze and project potential NFL performance. We're only 4 weeks into the season, so it's not the biggest sample size ever. However, there will always be little nuggets of truth in every sample of data you see, which could become bigger nuggets of truth as the season continues. So stick around as I analyze each week's matchups based on analytics. And if you are new to the channel, all terms and definitions will be in the description. So starting with this game of the Jaguars versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. The overall data, and again, this is data over the course of 4 weeks. So this is how both these teams have performed over the last 4 weeks when it comes to offense, defense, special teams. And again, all terms are in the description, so if you're new to this stuff. But so far, the overall data favors the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know what many of you guys are saying. What? How could it favor the same Jaguars that had that loss to the Titans? The same Jaguars that just lost to the Jets. As crazy as it may sound, despite all those issues, the Jaguars have actually been playing relatively well. A lot of the indicators is favoring them because of some of the success they've had in terms of blowout wins. I mean, that's the biggest thing. A lot of this is because of the blowout wins the Jaguars have had. Because so far this season, they've had 2 games that were, the Ravens and, of course, the game to start the year that were just flat-out blowout games, where they dominated up front on defense and offense, at least played fairly well. And then they had some games that were, then they had the Titans game that was kind of meh, and then, of course, they had the game last week against the Jets where it was pretty close across the board, and then they ended up losing it in overtime. So that's the context to this data. But the bottom line is I don't think anybody could disagree that the Jaguars defense has been playing well. I don't think anybody could disagree that the Pittsburgh Steelers defense has been playing well, and most of the indicators favor that. When you look at the total D score, which is the defense's ability to prevent first downs, both these teams score well in terms of that. When it comes to offense, creating first downs, basically the total O score is basically the ability to create first downs with the offense. Both these teams are okay in this particular area, but the Jaguars are a little bit better. And again, this is based on how they're performing over the last 2 weeks. Turnover ratio, both these teams have not turned the football over. Despite all the rhetoric around Blake Bortles, and again, I'm thinking it's just my personal opinion on all this is that I think it's inevitable. Like, it's about time that Blake Bortles has a crazy turnover game, but it just hasn't happened this year. So over the last 4 weeks at least. So that's kind of the standpoint I'm coming from here, is that all the stuff that you would normally stereotype the Jaguars as, that they give up a ton of turnovers and they allow a lot of sacks, that hasn't been the case this year. The Jaguars have not allowed a lot of sacks. They've actually allowed less sacks by a percentage standpoint per snap versus the Steelers this year. Haven't allowed a lot of turnovers either. Offensive score percentage. The Jaguars' offense, when it comes to offensive score percentage, basically the amount of times that they get the ball, do they score with it, is on the Jaguars. Most of the time, when the Jaguars get the ball this year, they usually put up points. They usually put points to the board. And then, of course, when you look at the defensive score percentage, that's the only real difference, is that the Steelers' defense has been performing better when it comes to preventing points in terms of offensive score percentage versus the Jaguars. Turnovers are definitely on the Jaguars side. They've basically been able to create more turnovers. Sack percentage is fairly even. Both these teams are very good when it comes to sacking the quarterback, but again, both these teams have also been fairly well in terms of preventing sacks, except for the Steelers. Interception ratio is on the Jaguars side in terms of creating interceptions. When you get to special teams, neither one of these teams has done well when it comes to punt return yardage or kick return yardage. Defensively, though, preventing punt return yardage has been on the Steelers, while preventing kick return yardage has been on the Jaguars. When you look at the field goal percentage, both these teams actually don't have the best field goal percentage overall compared to the rest of the NFL. But the Jaguars are a little bit better. Extra point percentage is on the Pittsburgh Steelers side, but neither of these teams are the best at that particular metric. And then punting average is solely in the Jaguars side. So as much as you may laugh at me and say that there's no way that the Jaguars are going to win this game and that the Jaguars are a fluke, again, the data favors the Jaguars slightly because of just the simple facts that over the course of 4 weeks worth of data, the Jaguars have just not had a lot of turnovers. They haven't allowed a lot of sacks. They've been able to create more turnovers. They've been able to sack the quarterback. Like, the Jaguars have been doing everything that you could imagine to increase their chances for winning football games. I still doubt the data, though. So, again, I just want to throw that out there. Just my own gut feelings, which has nothing to do with data, doubts the data. But you can't deny the fact, like, these are basic facts. Normally, teams that do this, that score on most of the drives that they have, that prevent points, that create turnovers, and don't allow a lot of sacks, and don't allow a lot of turnovers. Teams that usually do this usually win football games. So that's the basics we're pointing when to get out when it comes to NFL stat basics. But I would say it's pretty evenly matched. And of course, it's on the road against the Steelers, so you do have a home field advantage kind of thing to this game. And then, of course, when you look at completion percentage, I won't get too much into this, but the completion percentage data pretty much favors the Jaguars' defense overall in terms of the ability to prevent completions. The Jaguars' offense versus the Steelers' defense heavily favors the Steelers' defense in terms of preventing completion percentage. But for whatever reason, the biggest strength of this Jaguars' offense in terms of completion percentage has been in first down situations. So that's a big driver for their success is first down situations. And then, of course, when you get to rushing down, so this is the ability to create first downs. This has nothing to do with yardage, okay? I don't judge how good a rushing offense is by the yardage it creates. I judge it purely by the ability of that rushing offense to get first downs in crucial situations overall. When you look at the overall data, it pretty much favors the Steelers. The Steelers have been much better when it comes to creating first downs with the run on second down situations and third down situations compared to the Jaguars' defense. And then, of course, when you look at the Jaguars' offense versus the Steelers' defense, heavily favors the Jaguars' offense versus the Steelers' defense. So I think running the football will definitely be an advantage for both of these squads because both these teams have not really been the best when it comes to preventing first downs with the run. And the only advantage the Steelers will really have is when it comes to third down situations. Because the Steelers' defense, when it comes to third down situations against the run, that's been one area where they actually have been doing really well, performing really well. But not so much when it comes to first down situations or second down situations. Then, of course, when we get to passing situations, so the Steelers' offense versus Jaguars' defense, when it comes to passing situations, this mostly favors the Jaguars' defense overall. Fairly evenly matched when it comes to second down situations, but it's evenly matched for the most part. But there is a slight advantage to the Steelers' defense. And then, of course, when you look at the Jaguars' offense versus the Steelers' defense, pretty much favors the Steelers' defense. Pretty evenly matched when it comes to first down situations, but there is a big disparity when it comes to second down and a huge disparity when it comes to third down situations. So that's pretty much the issue, I guess, with this offense. Like, the biggest issue with the Jaguars' offense when it comes to passing is that they do pretty well in first down situations, but when it comes to second down and third down situations and picking up first downs on third down is not their best suit. So I think this is going to be a crucial matchup that actually could decide this football game if they're able to force them into third down situations. Then, of course, when we look at sack percentage, so this is basically the amount of sacks that they give up versus the Steelers' offense versus Jaguars' defense. I think the Jaguars will have some advantages when it comes to this department, especially when it comes to first downs overall. So, the Steelers don't really allow a lot of sacks in second down and third down situations for the most part, but they do allow a more than usual amount on first down. So I think that's going to be the best area for the Jaguars to kind of do their thing. Then, of course, when we look at the Jaguars' offense versus the Steelers' defense, pretty much favors the Jaguars' offense. The Jaguars have just not given up a lot of sacks this year. I mean, there's no other way around it. So I do think this is going to be a big test because you have two. It's a test for both offenses because you have two teams that have been sacking the quarterback pretty well this year. So it's going to be fun to see which one of these offensive lines holds up and does the best because that might also be a very key matchup in this game. And of course, when you look at interception ratio, favors the Jaguars defense. They've just been able to create more interceptions when it comes to first down situations, second down situations, and especially third down situations. Most of the interceptions for the Steelers have come in third down situations. And then lastly, the Jaguars offense versus the Steelers defense when it comes to interceptions mostly favors the Steelers defense for the most part. So again, how do I feel about this particular game? I don't feel well about this game. Honestly, based on my gut feelings about this game, I think the Steelers can get the victory. I think when you look at third down situations, especially when it comes to the pass and the run, I think the Steelers defense will have advantages when it comes to third down situations, when it comes to the pass and the run. And I think that'll be a key situation that I think the Steelers will win out on and ultimately stifle the Jaguars offense. Now, again, I could be absolutely wrong because, again, most of the data favors the Jaguars in this particular game. And as I already told you guys, I have a lot of misgivings about this particular. Like, this is one of those teams I just don't feel well about in how the data is projecting them. But you can't deny the fact of how they played over the last 4 weeks usually is conducive to winning more football games. So, I'll go personally with the Steelers. I think the Steelers, in terms of those situations, when it comes to third down situations, I think they'll come up big on defense, and I think they'll force the Jaguars to punt and be able to put up more points and then ultimately win the football game. But don't count the Jaguars out. Again, coming into this game, the data favors the Jaguars. So as much as I don't feel good about this, and again, I'm going with the Steelers, I'm going against what the data says, I still think that this is going to be a very interesting game to see how it turns out because of how the data is kind of laying things out so far. So, of course, you can also follow me at draftcoburn@wordpress.com in terms of other sort of data points, film reviews, draft grades, stuff like that. And, of course, you can also follow me on Twitter at Geometrics. And if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well if anybody that you know, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.